If you're into videos about supernatural phenomena, unsolved mysteries, and true crime, you've come to the right channel. We upload new videos 2 to 3 times a week, so if this sounds like the content you enjoy, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss any of our weekly uploads. Now, let's dive into the video. The year was 1943, and the world was at war. In the bustling shipyards of Philadelphia, a group of naval engineers and scientists had been tasked with an impossible mission: to make a warship invisible. As strange as it sounded, this experiment was part of a classified military project, supposedly aimed at making American ships undetectable to enemy radar. But what began as a bold, futuristic idea soon turned into one of the most baffling, terrifying, and mysterious stories in American naval history: the Philadelphia experiment. The USS Eldridge, a destroyer escort, was the focal point of this experiment. The technology involved was rumored to be based on Einstein's unified field theory, a complex theoretical framework that sought to explain how electromagnetic forces could manipulate space and time. Some accounts even mentioned that the project was connected to Nikola Tesla's work, as the scientific ideas at play seemed like something out of science fiction. But this was no work of fiction, at least not for the men involved in the experiment. On a clear day in October 1943, with all preparations in place, the USS Eldridge was docked at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Navy personnel, engineers, and top military brass gathered in anticipation. There was a sense of unease among some of the crew members. Rumors had circulated about what might happen. They had heard whispers, impossible ones, about ships disappearing, reappearing, and some even being transported across vast distances in the blink of an eye. But nothing could have prepared them for what was about to unfold. With the flip of a switch, massive electromagnetic generators installed on board the Eldridge roared to life. A low hum filled the air, growing louder and louder until it became an unbearable whine. According to later accounts, a greenish fog began to swirl around the ship, slowly engulfing it. Then, to the astonishment of those watching, the USS Eldridge began to shimmer. Within seconds, the entire ship vanished from sight, as if it had been plucked from reality. For a moment, there was stunned silence. The ship was gone. All that remained was the eerie green mist that hung in the air, slowly dissipating. Then came the shockwave, an invisible force that rippled through the area, knocking some observers off their feet. It was as though the very fabric of space had been torn open, and the consequences were immediate and terrifying. When the Eldridge finally reappeared minutes later, something had gone horribly wrong. According to witnesses, what they saw wasn't the same pristine ship that had vanished. The hull appeared scorched, metal plates twisted unnaturally, and, most disturbingly, crew members were screaming in horror. As personnel rushed to the ship, they were met with a scene straight out of a nightmare. Some sailors were disoriented, wandering the deck in a daze. Others were writhing in pain, their bodies suffering from intense radiation burns. But the true horror was revealed when rescuers ventured below deck. According to some reports, several crew members had been fused with the metal of the ship itself. Their limbs and torsos were embedded in the steel walls, as if they had become one with the ship during its strange disappearance. There were no explanations for how this could have happened. The survivors were in a state of shock, some driven to madness by whatever they had experienced. In the days that followed, the military scrambled to cover up the events. Officially, the Navy denied that anything extraordinary had occurred, but among the sailors, rumors spread like wildfire. They spoke of men who vanished without a trace, only to reappear miles away with no memory of how they got there. There were also stories of sailors suffering from time slips, where they would briefly experience moments from the past or future as if they were trapped in a loop outside of normal time. One of the most chilling accounts came from a sailor named Al Bielek, who years later would claim to have been part of the experiment. According to Bielek, he and his brother Duncan were aboard the Eldridge when the ship vanished. He described a sensation of weightlessness, followed by intense nausea, as the ship was thrown through a rift in time. Bielek claimed that he and his brother were transported to the future, specifically to the year 2137. In this bizarre future world, Bielek described a dystopian landscape where much of the Earth had been devastated by environmental disasters and wars. After a short time in this future world, Bielek said they were somehow returned to the past, where they were reintegrated into the present day. Another key figure in the Philadelphia experiment's lore is Carlos Miguel Allende, also known as Carl Allen. He wrote a series of letters in the 1950s claiming to have witnessed the experiment from a nearby merchant ship. Allende's letters, sent to researcher Morris K. Jessup, described how the USS Eldridge disappeared in a flash of light, only to reappear elsewhere moments later. He insisted that the Navy had been experimenting with forces beyond their control, and that the consequences were far more severe than anyone knew. Despite these claims, the U.S. Navy has repeatedly denied that the Philadelphia experiment ever took place. In official statements, they have called it a hoax, asserting that no such experiment was ever conducted, and that any strange occurrences surrounding the USS Eldridge were purely coincidental. Skeptics have pointed out that much of the evidence for the experiment comes from unreliable sources or individuals with questionable credibility. They argue that the story of the Philadelphia experiment is nothing more than a conspiracy theory fueled by paranoia and misinformation. But there are others who believe the Navy is hiding the truth. They point to the mysterious disappearance of certain naval records from that time, the strange behavior of crew members who were aboard the Eldridge, and the bizarre electromagnetic phenomena reported in the area. They ask why the Navy would go to such lengths to dismiss the experiment if there was nothing to hide. Perhaps the most unsettling part of the Philadelphia experiment is that it touches on the fringes of what we understand about science and reality. The idea that electromagnetic fields could be used to bend space and time is not entirely outside the realm of theoretical physics. Einstein's theories suggested that time and space are interconnected, and some physicists have speculated that, under the right conditions, it might be possible to manipulate the fabric of the universe itself. If the Philadelphia experiment did happen, it raises profound questions about the nature of reality. What did the crew of the USS Eldridge experience during those fateful minutes? Were they transported to another dimension, another time, or simply rendered invisible by advanced technology? And if the experiment failed so catastrophically, what other secret projects might the military have pursued in its aftermath? To this day, the Philadelphia experiment remains one of the most controversial and debated subjects in conspiracy lore. It sits alongside other infamous tales like Roswell and Area 51, where government secrecy, strange occurrences, and unexplainable phenomena converge. Whether or not the experiment truly occurred, the story has captured the imaginations of countless people, drawing them into a world where science pushes the boundaries of the possible, sometimes with terrifying results. In the end, the Philadelphia experiment serves as a reminder of humanity's unquenchable curiosity and our desire to understand the unknown. It's a tale that continues to inspire, frighten, and provoke thought, leaving us to wonder what really happened that day in 1943, and whether we will ever know the full truth.